discussing about biodiversity, and definitely we'll learn many more things. So first we'll see the definition of biodiversity, but before that I want to ask you a certain question. Who invented the term biodiversity, or who has given the definition of biodiversity and the term, who has coined it exactly, and who is the father of biodiversity? And then third question is, what is biodiversity? So anybody can answer. Who coined the term biodiversity? किसने किया term coin? Anybody from environment? पर्यावरण से कोई होगा तो बोल सकते हैं.
Wilson, sir, Wilson.
Wilson. Okay. Who is father of biodiversity? Anybody? The term biodiversity was coined by Rosen in 1985, and it is basically having two words, biological and variety. So biological organisms and variety in biological organisms. So this is what basically coined by two different, can say, terms, bio and diversity. That's what biodiversity, and coined by W. G. Rosen in 1985. Now, what is the definition of biodiversity? Biodiversity is the total variety of life on our planet, the total number of races, varieties, and species. जितने भी plants, animals, microbes, whatever they are there on Earth or planet. So all together, इनको हम क्या बोलते हैं? Biodiversity. Biodiversity is the total variety of life on our planet, the total number of races, varieties, and species. Whatever they are there, all living organisms are included under biodiversity. The sum of total of various types of microbes, plants, and animals, including producers, consumers, and decomposers in an ecosystem. All together, we are calling it as what? Biodiversity. जितने भी living organism है, all they are included under biodiversity. And all these are important for us. Each and every organism, each and every species, each and every variety is useful for human being in, can say, one or other way. And that's why we must study all this and must know what role they are playing in ecosystem. Okay? That's biodiversity. So biodiversity is basically studied at three different levels. These are what the levels of biodiversity. Genetic diversity is the first level, where we can study diversity at genetic level. The second one is species diversity. We can study biodiversity at species level. And the third one is ecosystem diversity. So one can study diversity at ecosystem level, or can say at large, can say it maybe can say any type of ecosystem or group of ecosystem where you can study diversity in that. So these are three different levels of biodiversity: genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. So what is genetic diversity? The genetic diversity is a measure of the variety of forms of same gene within individual species. So whatever genes are there, or similar genes are there in the same variety or same species or same, can say, individuals, is generally called genetic diversity. जितने भी genes, similar genes इसमें हैं, you can take any example of any species, you can consider any one species. In that species, whatever genes are there, and if you see the diversity at the genetic level or DNA level or gene level, then you can definitely say it is what? Genetic diversity. Within individual species, there are a variety, or there are, can say, races that are slightly different from one another. You can see differences in plant, you can see differences in, can say, different microorganisms, or even you can see the differences in animals. And these differences are because of genes or because of, can say, DNA. So these differences are due to difference in combination of genes. So the genes which are expressing, you can see their phenotypic effect morphologically, or you can say visually, or even you can see that, can say, differences at molecular level, or can say at macromolecular level or micromolecular level. So that genes are most important. And when you see variation in that gene, then it's called genetic diversity. So this is an example of, can say, cow You can see there are different types of races, different types of can say varieties in a particular species. In a particular this is the cattle group. In that you can see there is variety and it's because of can say a particular gene. You can see the change in skin color, or you can see variation or variegation, or can say the color tone is different in different can say a type of cattle, and it's because of genetic diversity or gene diversity. Even you can take an example of rice. You can have different colors in the rice. Rice is a species. In that particular species, you can have different varieties and different races. Okay, different ecotypes also. So this is because of can say variation in gene. So one particular gene is responsible for color, and if you see variation in that particular gene, you can see variation in the color. Even you can say variation in aroma or variation in can say uh, size of the grain, height of the plant, and it's because of the different genes. So that's what you can say genetic diversity. Even you can take example of can say jawar. Jawar is having different can say colors. अलग अलग कलर में आपको जवार मिल जाता है, अलग अलग हाइट में मिल जाता है, and it's because of can say certain genes available in that particular plant or particular variety, and because of that genes you can see the variation. So when you study variation at genetic level, so you are studying the genetic diversity in a particular species. So that's what can say you can see diversity or variation or variety of genes in a particular species. So it can differ from species to species, or from variety to variety, or even can say from ecotype to ecotype. So that's what genetic diversity. So these are two examples. So there are many examples. You can see the variety in butterflies, you can see variety in dogs, you can see variety in can say different animals, different plants, different microbes. All these are because of genetic diversity or diversity in the genes. And when you study the genes at can say molecular level, then definitely you'll learn genetic diversity. So diversity at genetic level is called genetic diversity. The next level is what? Species diversity. Just you can say from molecular level, you can to come to a broad spectrum, you can say broad size. That's what species. What species is basically? Species is a group of organism which can reproduce in nature and produce fertile offspring. So without any interference, when offsprings or case individuals of same group of organism, they interbreed or they produce their offspring without any interference, then definitely all these are coming under one particular group, and that group is called species. So definition of species is basically a discrete group of organisms of the same kind is known as species. This is general definition. Okay, you can see the butterflies of same color, same size, same nature. They're showing interbreeding, or they reproduce without any interference. Naturally, they are interbreeding, and that's why they are coming under same species. Or you can have different plants of maize, and they are fertile, and they can produce their offspring. So this maize is one of the species. So there are different species in plants, like can say Oryza sativa, rice is one of the species, or can say maize is one of the species. Homo sapiens human is one of the species. There are different races, but it's one species. So a discrete group of organism of the same kind is known as a species. And when you're studying diversity at this species level, then it's called species diversity. So species diversity is the diversity between different species. You can see variation between the species. Even you can see variation within the species. It is because of genes. It is because of can say gene and environmental interaction. But when you see the differences between two different species, or can say three different species or four different species, then definitely can say it is species diversity. The sum of varieties of all living organisms at the species level is known as species diversity. So you can see different types of plants. They're having different sizes in their can say flower, their seed, height, can say color, even different types of animals. So you can see variation, and it's because of variation in the species. Each species is having their can say gene pool, and they are not mixing. And if anyone you want to mix it, you have to cross them, you have to can say make hybrid out of them. So it is having human interference. Then it's possible. Otherwise, natural hybridization is there, but some can say rate is very low. So this is what species diversity. So we have seen genetic diversity at gene level, species diversity at species level, and then at large, we can see diversity as a community level or diversity at ecosystem level. This is called ecosystem diversity. A set of biotic components, all the plants, all the animals, and all the microorganisms which are interacting with a biotic component, that is soil, air, water, or maybe can say rain, whatever, etc. They are there in the can say that particular ecosystem when they're interacting with them. So each of them coming under that particular ecosystem. So ecosystem is basically called interaction of living and non-living things. So when there is living things that are interacting with non-living thing in a particular area, then that particular system is called ecosystem. And when you can see diversity in that ecosystem is called ecosystem diversity. Diversity at an ecological level or at habitat level is known as ecosystem diversity. We can say diversity in can say water ecosystem or pond ecosystem or can say aquatic ecosystem. We can say different organisms which are growing in water. So these are not available on terrestrial ecosystem. But there are certain can say animals which are very common between these two ecosystems. So forest ecosystem is different than water ecosystem or aquatic ecosystem. A terrestrial ecosystem is different than can say aquatic ecosystem. And even the aquatic ecosystem are two different types, marine ecosystem or can say freshwater ecosystem. So these are what different types of ecosystem. And when you are studying, can say diversity at ecosystem level, then definitely you are studying ecosystem diversity. So diverse type of organisms are there in different ecosystems, and this is what again essential to study the organisms, species at can say large scale. This is what we can say community or ecosystem diversity. This is another example, river or pond or ocean ecosystem. Rivers includes can say fish, aquatic insects, mussels, and a variety of plants that have adapted to water or can say aquatic ecosystem. Even you can say there is adaptation of plants in can say marine ecosystem. They are requiring that particular habitat for their growth and development. It is not possible for them to grow on can say other habitat, other condition. So they're adapted to that. And when you're studying all this, then definitely you're studying the ecosystem diversity or community diversity. So this were three different types of can say three different levels of diversity. When you're studying at large, at community level, then it's ecosystem diversity. When you're studying it at species level, then it's the species diversity. And when you're studying it at can say genetic level or at DNA level or at molecular level, then definitely it is at genetic diversity. So three levels of diversity one can use to study the different organisms, and there are even different measures or can say measurements of species diversity. When you're studying and measuring the species diversity, so you can measure the species richness or species abundance in a particular ecosystem. एक इकोसिस्टम में अगर आपको richness देखना है तो कैसे देखेंगे? This is what number of species per unit area. If you consider that area and how many species are there in that particular area is basically called species richness. Number of species per unit area. Here you are not to consider how many individuals are there in that area. Maybe one species is having 100 different individuals, other is having just 10 different individuals. So you're not supposed to count the individuals, but you have to count the number of species. So all can say varieties of species which are there in that particular area is called a species richness. Number of species per unit area. In a specific area, in that particular ecosystem, when you consider, make a boundary of that and count the number of species, then this is called species richness. At the same time, you can study species abundance. These are what total number of individuals per species in a particular community. When you're studying the community, you can count the number of species. At the same time, You can count the number of individuals of same species or each species. हर एक species के आपको क्या करना है number count करना है individuals के. So that is what abundance. So you can study all this and you can calculate the indices. So species diversity is measured with two different type of indices. The number one is Shannon Wiener Diversity Index. You can use that index to can say find out species diversity, or you can use Simpson's Diversity Index. These two indices are generally used to find out species diversity. Okay? So many times, measurement of species diversity can be done with the help of these can say indices, and even Whitaker in 1972 has given three different can say measures of diversity. One is called alpha diversity, second one is called beta diversity, and third one is called gamma diversity. So what is alpha diversity, what is beta diversity, and what is gamma diversity? We'll see one by one. So this is one of the photograph. Here you can see there is water, means a river is flowing. Okay. There is a cropland ecosystem. There is forest ecosystem. So this is what a single picture where you can have three different ecosystem: a man-made cropland ecosystem, a can say river ecosystem. At the same time, you can have a forest ecosystem or terrestrial ecosystem. And with this photograph, we can understand what is alpha diversity, what is beta diversity, and what is gamma diversity. Just can say study this and find out what is alpha diversity. So alpha diversity is basically a diversity on a local scale, or can say describing the species diversity or species richness within functional community. एक community में, एक ecosystem में, छोटे ecosystem में, when you study the species richness, then it's called alpha diversity. So when you are studying the species richness, or can say जितने भी species यहाँ पर है, you can count the number of species in forest ecosystem. So then it's called alpha diversity. And we are counting total number of can say individuals in cropland ecosystem or can say pond ecosystem or again man-made ecosystem, then definitely you are studying the alpha diversity. So alpha diversity is basically diversity refers to the diversity on a local scale in a particular can say area, in a particular can say community, एक community में एक area में when you are studying the species richness, then it is what alpha diversity. एक इकोसिस्टम में छोटे इकोसिस्टम में बात करते जैसे पॉन्ड इकोसिस्टम होगा तो अभी हम उसको क्या बोलेंगे हाउ मेनी स्पेसीज आर देयर सो टोटल नंबर ऑफ स्पेसीज इन अ पॉन्ड इकोसिस्टम इज अल्फा डाइवर्सिटी total number of species which are available in that particular forest ecosystem, maybe total number of animal, total number of plant, total number of microbes, which are not can say repeated again. So how many are there? So the total number, that's the richness, and when you're studying that in a particular ecosystem, that's forest or pond or cropland, or can say a marine ecosystem, then it's what alpha level diversity. So this is what diversity at community level, or can say functional community level, or can say small scale or local scale. That's what alpha diversity. Then what is beta diversity? It is what species diversity of two adjacent ecosystem. When you compare the diversity between two different ecosystems, when you take an example of can say pond ecosystem or river ecosystem, then when you compare pond and river ecosystem, this is what basically called beta diversity. Or when you compare species diversity in river ecosystem and forest ecosystem, so this is what forest ecosystem, this is river ecosystem. दोनों का अगर आप compare करते, that's a beta diversity. And when you compare, can say river ecosystem or pond ecosystem, or even can say the cropland ecosystem, that is called beta diversity. So it's a comparison between two ecosystems. And here, what you can do, you can count the number of species in one ecosystem. And if the same species or some of the species of that ecosystem is available in second, you can say ecosystem, you can say nearby pond ecosystem, you have not to repeat them. So you have to count the number of species available in both ecosystem and compare them. Then this comparison is called beta diversity. So alpha diversity is what basically richness study in a single ecosystem, and beta diversity is a comparison of two ecosystems. Then third one is gamma diversity. The gamma diversity is obtained by considering overall species diversity across communities within a larger geographical area. So here you can have a entire can say biome or can say larger geographical area where you can have different ecosystem. And when you study all the species in that particular ecosystem and find out the richness of all the species in all the ecosystem and you compare them, then it's called gamma diversity. So here when you compare the diversity between you can say the alpha diversity of river ecosystem, alpha diversity of can say pond ecosystem, alpha diversity of can say cropland, and alpha diversity of can say forest ecosystem. So when you combine all these three or can say more than three ecosystem together, then it becomes gamma diversity. So so we have seen three different can say types of diversity in the species richness, the alpha, beta, and gamma. So I'll just explain it with a simple diagram. So this is what alpha diversity. In a small area, when you're studying the plant, and these are the plant species in that particular area, then it's called alpha diversity of a community. When you compare these two alpha diversities, then it's called beta diversity of that community. And when you compare all these four together, then it's called gamma diversity of the region. So this is what species diversity, and you can study it at we can say alpha level, beta level, and gamma level. So this is basically the can say components you can use for defining and characterizing the community or can say the ecosystems. Now we have seen what is biodiversity, we have seen genetic diversity, we have seen can say species diversity, we have seen ecosystem or can say community diversity, then different levels of diversity, and then alpha, beta, and gamma diversities in the species. Now, why to study all this? What is importance of this can say diverse organism or can say varied organism in our life or can say for human being? क्या फायदा होगा उनका क्यों स्टडी करना? So we can say understand it with certain example. So there are different services which are provided by different organisms to the human, and you can include it under can say three or four different groups. So we'll see first ecological services which are provided by different organisms or different can say plant, different animals and microbes. The best known example, if you take an example of food chain in the forest ecosystem and how this ecosystem is important for us and how can say ecological services they are can say provided for us by plants and animals in that particular ecosystem. This is what basically we can say ecosystem stability. How the ecosystem they remain stable for longer time or for can say for longer period. When you study the food chain, food web, and all the components of the ecosystem, will come to know there are different organisms. They are interacting with each other and helping each other to can say maintain the stability in the ecosystem. Just take an example of can say plant or producer. The plants are taking sunlight from sun, and with the help of the sunlight, they are producing carbohydrate by the process of photosynthesis. So with the help of water and sunlight, carbon dioxide is fixed in the form of carbohydrate. Now that carbohydrate is good food for can say herbivore or can say for cattle, for can say rabbit, for insect, which are can say living on the plants. Now this is what generally called primary consumers, herbivores. Now these herbivores are the good food for can say carnivores or omnivores, secondary consumers. Then secondary consumers for tertiary consumers and then tertiary consumers, top consumers or can say carnivores. So this is the food chain. But when the plant grow, they complete their life cycle and they die. These plants are decomposed by decomposers. This is what coming under detritus food chain. Or even each and every can say carnivore, herbivore. After their can say life cycle completion, they die and they are decomposed by decomposers. So whatever minerals which are taken from soil, These minerals are can say metabolized with help of can say sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide, and converted into our and food. Now these are available from can say plants to can say animals. Okay. So in this process, nutrients are recycled. So whatever nutrients taken up by plants from the soil through their root system with help of water, they are taken back to the soil. And it's what written in the book, Soil, Grass and Cancer. The title of the book, or the name of the book is Soil, Grass and Cancer. It is written that, man, remember that you are dust and you will return to dust. So every molecule, every amino acid, every protein, whatever can say carbohydrate, proteins and lipids which are there in our body are coming from plants, are coming from minerals, are coming from soil. And these are all assembled by plants. So plants are photosynthetic factories, and it is not yet can say developed any artificial factory like can say plants are producing grain. It is not possible for us to can take carbohydrate and prepare grain out of that. Okay, we can prepare chapati, we can prepare can say roti out of carbohydrate, but it's not possible to prepare grain. So plants are there, and they are natural factories, photosynthetic factories. They're taking water from the soil. They're taking water from the sources, minerals from the soil, and sunlight, and carbon dioxide from air, and convert it into what carbohydrate. It's available for the plant. And plants, they are producing food, and that food is available for herbivore. And then next to that herbivore is carnivore, omnivore, can say likewise top order carnivores. So if you take any can say element out of this ecosystem, एक को निकाल देते हैं. If you just taken can say herbivore को निकाल देंगे हम लोग तो क्या होगा? If you can say herbivore को निकाल देगा तो होगा क्या? Plant will grow. They are not can say eaten by herbivore. Herbivore ही नहीं तो उसको निकाल दिया हम लोगों ने. So प्लांट जो भी फूड तैयार कर रहे हैं वो नेक्स्ट ऑर्डर में नहीं जाएगा. Omnivores may eat plant, but the number उनका कम होगा ज्यादा का आपको स्टडी करके बताना पड़ेगा. जैसे कार्निवोर्स, दे आर डिपेंडेंट ऑन कैसे ओमनिवोर्स और हार्बिवोर्स. अगर हार्बिवोर नहीं ओर्बिवोर नहीं तो कार्निवोर नहीं जी पाएंगे. सो इन एनी फूड चेन किसी को भी हम निकाल देते हैं तो पूरा इस सिस्टम डिस्टर्ब हो जाता है. अगर उनके डेथ के बाद अगर डिकम्पोजर वहां पर नहीं होते तो क्या होगा? सो एवरी प्लांट एवरी लिविंग ऑर्गेनिज्म अर्थ पे वैसे रह जाते, बोझ बन जाता है. तो देखो, डिकम्पोजर्स को काम करना है डिकम्पोज करने का. सो दे आर प्लेइंग मेजर रोल in can say deteriorating and decomposing the living things and converting into a mineral again and taking it to soil. And from that soil, plants are again taking up. So this cycle is what continue. And energy is can say taken from can say different sources. It's transferred from one level to another level. पूरा energy transfer होता है. Okay, but if you study one more thing, that न्यूट्रिएंट साइकिलिंग, इकोसिस्टम स्टेबिलिटी और क्लाइमेट स्टेबिलिटी, तो अब दूसरा भी आप देख सकते हैं. प्लांट्स आर टेकिंग कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड फ्रॉम द सोर्सेस और फ्रॉम द सराउंडिंग एंड रिलीजिंग ऑक्सीजन. अगर ऑक्सीजन कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड का बैलेंस करना तो प्लांट्स आर इम्पोर्टेंट. एंड हाउ इट इज पॉसिबल फॉर देम? इट इज पॉसिबल फॉर देम विद हेल्प ऑफ सनलाइट. अगर सनलाइट नहीं होगा, इट इज नॉट पॉसिबल फॉर कैंसर टू कैंसर टेक अप कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड एंड कन्वर्ट इनटू कार्बोहाइड्रेट and release the oxygen. It is not possible to take the rain in the form of can say vapors from the sea to the can say plains or to the mountain. So बारिश अगर नहीं होगी तो पानी कहाँ से मिलेगा? और बारिश होने के लिए आपके पास क्या होना चाहिए? We should have can say sunlight and temperature. जितना टेम्परेचर ज्यादा सनलाइट होगा बैट होगा उतना ज्यादा पानी इवापोरेट होगा सरफेस से, and that will form can say cloud, and cloud will again at certain temperature will can precipitate. So everything is what stabilized in the ecosystem in nature, and that's why plants are important. That's why animals are important. That's why even decomposers are important. Every order organism is important in the ecosystem, in the food chain, in the food web. If we eliminate any of them, then definitely we'll lose that ecological services. So every organism are playing a role, are serving for us in can say ecological services. Naturally, they are what important for us, and they are what playing their role in converting the thing. Even some of the plants, some of the bacteria, some of the microbes, they are breakdown pollutants. We're adding different chemicals to the soil. In agriculture, we're adding fertilizer, we're adding pesticides, we are adding fungicides. So certain organisms are there, microbes are there, which are converting and can say this uh, molecules or can say fungicides and can say avoiding their harmful effect. उनको break down करने का काम microbes करते हैं. And if you're having heavy load, so even some plants are there, they are taking up heavy metals from the water bodies. So there is phytoremediation, there is microbial remediation. So these are what most important for us. So this is again ecological service. And there are again biological services they are providing for us. So we'll see biological services. So what are the biological services provided by plants and animals for us? So plants and animals, they are what good source for us as what food. We are taking grains from the plant. We are taking grains from can say crop plants. We are taking medicines from medicinal plants. जितना भी फारा फार्मेसी हमारा आयुर्वेद होगा यूनानी सिस्टम होगा every system is was using medicinal plants, their tinctures, their extracts, their powders and convert into useful medicinal drug. Pharmaceutical drugs को हम उससे तैयार करते हैं. There are plants which are ornamental, which are very useful for aesthetic values. हमारा mind can say stable रखने के लिए we need some ornamental plants, showy plants, flowering plants, different colors we need to grow, to have can say beautification around us. Wood products, without wood is not possible to can say have a furniture, it is not possible to have agricultural implements. So wood is also important. It's a source for us from plant. Breeding stock, even can say there are different goats, cattle, cows which are there, and their breeding purpose we are using different species, different sources, and then these are good can say source of milk if you breed them and you can say produce quality hybrids out of them. Even gene diversity, certain plants are very toxic, certain plants are having can gene which are tolerant to can say heat, which are tolerant to drought, so we can extract gene, isolate them, and can say we can construct a genetic molecule, you can say recombinant molecule, and we can transfer that gene to a plant so as to produce drought resistant plant, so as to produce you can say insect resistant plants. So this genetic diversity is also important for us. So biological services are there, ecological services same way, social services are there. So plant are providing us social services. We are using plant for research. We are using plants for education purpose. We are educating students with different plants. We are having some can say plants in uh, we are using in their can say cultural or custom. So cultural values are there. Sacred plants are there. We are having can say tourism. Plants are playing a major role. Some animals are playing major roles. So different wildlife sanctuaries are there. These are can say tourist points, ecotourism. Everywhere plants, animals are used for us. Recreational. So these are social services. Human need can say different things to remain stable, to remain quiet and calm. So definitely, so different plants, different animals, everything is useful for us. Even microbes are producing different can say chemicals, essence. So you can produce essence and that can be used for different purpose or can say making aroma out of that. So these are the examples. So we can construct DNA molecule, we can take out the gene, we can transfer, we can make tissue culture plant, we have a sacred plants, and even can say some of the areas where you can use backwater for even can say tourism, where the plant and sceneries and beauty is most important. So these are the services provided by different plants, animals, and microbes for the human being. And that's why biodiversity is most important. Now we have seen the different services provided by biological organism and they're important for us. And that's why we should learn each and every organism, find out how they're useful for us, what is their utility, and how to protect them. But there are different factors which are affecting biodiversity. So there are can say natural causes, can say natural factors which are affecting biodiversity. Maybe can say natural disasters or can say natural calamities. We can take some of the example like landslide. So we have seen different examples, can say different instances or can say events which has happened can say in the recent past. Maybe Bhima Shankar, Mali landslide, maybe can Uttaranchal, you can see the landslide. And it is because of, can say, some factors or can some can say natural calamities and landslides and can say erode out almost all the species which are growing there. So this is one of the reason we can say cause of can say losing the biodiversity. So that affects or lost the biodiversity. Floods again is a natural cause. Because of flood, we lose most of the biodiversity. You can say most of the can say small plants. Lack of pollinators. Sometime because you can say uh, warm climate or can say height, some of the pollinators they will not reach to that particular area or they are not active under certain condition. And when pollinators are not there, definitely they are not helping in pollination and there is no can say pollinations of the plant and plant will not able to produce seeds. So their uh, life cycle is stopped because of pollinators are not available. So we should protect pollinators. We should protect, can say, different pollinators required by different plants. Natural calamities are there, diseases are there. Some plants or some species are, can say, affected by certain diseases. And because of the diseases, entire community of the plant, entire, can say, species, they are lost from the nature. So these are natural causes for the loss of community or loss of, can say, biodiversity. But some of the factors which are man-made. So biodiversity is disturbed by human activities also. And these activities are listed here. Some of these activities, poaching of animals, over-exploitation of natural resources, degradation of habitats, agrochemical pollution, overuse of fresh water and toxic waste. So these are the example. You can see poaching of animals. Animals are can say killed for their skins or can say their hairs or some other products. Sometimes some animal products are useful as a medicine. So poaching of animal is one of the can say factor where the biodiversity is lost because of human activity. If you avoid all this, definitely we can have more biodiversity and can protect animals. People are killing elephants for their teeth. People are killing can say rabbits for their can say skin. So we should avoid all this. Or exploitation, if you can say in some of the can say area, here this is a total grassland. In this particular photograph, you can see the grassland, and in that grassland, some of the plants are grown, and entire area is grassland. It's very useful, or can say useful for wild animals, because uh, wild dogs, even some cat species, they're growing in that particular area, and they are can say taking their food from the sources. And if you start growing, can say larger trees in this particular area, or lose that habitat, definitely we are losing the animals. In this photograph, you can see this is what white animal you can say uh, jackal you can see. And if we are not can say protecting this particular areas, पूरा dry होने के बाद ना उनको पानी होता ना खाने के लिए होता है. So there is what having interaction between human and wild animal. A conflict बन जाता है and people are killing such. So you can see here also some of the areas which are green, but some of the areas in mountain you can say पहाड़ी एरिया में अब देखेंगे पूरा barren हो चुका है, पूरा निकाल दिया इसको. So this is what overuse of can say degradation of habitats or can say non-availability of water for the animal or poaching of animals. So one should avoid all this and don't disturb, they can say, wild animals, plants, and protect them in their natural habitat. One more factor, that's what marine ecosystems which are disturbed due to discharge of effluent and oil spill. And you can see when you can say how oily in the water or in ocean, oil generally is what float on water surface, making the ecosystem can say uh, without oxygen because there is no can say exchange of gases and that is responsible for killing of most of the fishes. So whatever can say discharge of effluent is having can say some of the toxic chemicals in them, and these toxic chemicals are hazardous for the fishes or can say water animals or water uh, plants. So this is responsible for killing biodiversity in our vicinity. So this is one of the factors responsible for biodiversity loss. Okay. So we have seen natural factors and man-made factors and different ecosystem where we are losing the biodiversity. So it is our duty to keep the areas intact and protect almost all the organisms. Otherwise, we'll lose most of them. We are lost most of the organisms, even dinosaurs, different species of cancer plants. Just take an example of penicillium. Penicillin is obtained from penicillium. अगर ये पेनिसिलियम डिस्कवर होने से पहले अगर लॉस हो जाता था क्या होता था विल नॉट हैविंग से different antibiotics. And take an example of cinchona. We can obtain can say quinine or can say one of the in medicine or drug obtained from the bark of cinchona that's useful against malaria. और उसके पहले अगर उसका लॉस होता तो शायद हमें मलेरिया के लिए मेडिसिन नहीं मिलता. We don't know what will happen in the can say, future, what type of diseases will be there, what type of can say calamities will be there. One should protect plants and animals, even microbe, because they will be having some of the values in them that can be useful for us. We don't know how many species are still there because most of the species are not yet discovered, not yet invented. तो बहुत सारा अभी बाकी है and we are there. Even the coming generation will can say, find out such plants and species which may be having some value in the society. Now there are climatic factors which are responsible for losing the biodiversity, and this is what basically global warming, ozone depletion, and acid rain. This is again man-made. Climatic factors, global warming, high temperature is responsible for can say melting the glaciers, ice, and that will definitely raise the sea level. At the same time, high temperature is responsible for can say non-development of flowers in the plant because at particular temperature plants are able to produce flower. And if temperature is high, that temperature is what inducing certain genes in the plants. And plant gets signal that there is high temperature and now we will not produce the can say flowers. So they are protecting themselves from wasting their energies and flowers and seed. So if the temperature is very high and remain can say high for a longer time, maybe the time will come, plants will not produce flower. And if flowers are not produced, it is not possible to get grains out of can say plants. So our different varieties, if they are not stable at high temperature, will not able to produce food. So global warming will have huge effect on plants. At the same time, they're having huge effect on animals also. Ozone depletion, this is another cancer factor responsible for losing the biodiversity. The acid rain also. So you can see these are what different effects of cancer acid rain and the ozone. So ozone is what the layer which filters UV rays. And if you suppose get exposed to UV rays, that will can say the skin with UV rays will develop definitely the cancer. So different diseases, skin diseases will can say there if you can say get exposed to more ozone or sorry more UV rays because of cancer depletion ozone. So that's again one of the factors which is responsible for losing the biodiversity. Acid rain is responsible for can say killing the plants and low temp can say lower pH will definitely uh, can say fade the can say leaves and responsible for can say necrosis, crossing, and all that. So plant leaves will can say get fade, will lose chlorophyll, and even can say completely bleached out because of can say acid. And under such conditions, possible for not possible for plant to produce can say food with help of photosynthesis because chlorophylls are not there. So these are the effects of can say global warming. These are generally can say or ozone depletion or can say arsenic is a climatic factor responsible for losing the biodiversity. Okay? Now, what measure one should can say take to conserve biodiversity? This is what different measures needed for conserving biodiversity. And just can say simple actions, can say very minor things are there. If you think in positive way, will avoid loss of biodiversity. First thing is what illegal hunting and trade of animals and animal products should be stopped immediately. If you're not purchasing animal product, stop purchasing them. अगर फर का बैग, पर्स आपने परचेस नहीं किया, तो definitely there will be no demand for such products in the society. If you avoid the fur cap, definitely there will be no demand for such kinds of product in the market. तो क्या होगा? अगर डिमांड नहीं होगा तो प्रोडक्शन नहीं होगा. And if production not there, definitely people not kill them. So the animal skin product or skin based product, if you avoid them, so हमारा काम ही एक होगा. अगर खुद मैं अवॉइड करूंगा एक, तो प्रोडक्ट नहीं बेचेगा. If everybody involved in this, everybody can say stop purchasing such, then definitely illegal hunting होगा नहीं, illegal trade होगा नहीं. So that's what one of the case. We should avoid illegal hunting. At the same time, illegal trading of animal and animal. People at large should boycott purchasing coats, purse, or bags made of animal skin. Biodiversity laws should be strengthened. जिसका जो बायोडाइवर्सिटी लॉज है इसके बारे में, उसको अगर स्ट्रेंथन करते हैं तो डेफिनेट इसका फायदा होगा. एंड वन शुड अवॉइड. पहला काम हमारा, वी शुड गेट कैन से एजुकेटेड and can say nurtured in such way that we should avoid such things from the community and definitely avoid illegal hunting of the animals. Uh, Many times what happen, when there is no food in the surrounding, not in the particular can say ecosystem, the animals they're coming out of that area and can say approaching to the fields where crops are growing. And now farmers they're what using the electric fence. When they come in contact with that electric fence, they get killed. If you want to stop that, we should use solar powered fencing, and that's how we can say lower current. Just can say simple shock will that it not kill the animal, and will go run away from that. Maybe some sensor should be there. That sensors or can say some sound should be there where the animals get repelled from that particular, or you can avoid cropping such plant nearby forest areas. So this is what can say solar fencing or solar power fencing to avoid killing of the animal and even destroying the crop plants or can say uh, food plants and can say vegetables in the vicinity. The दूसरा part हो सकता है, you should keep adequate food and water to the plants and animals in their vicinity in their ecosystem. This is one of the wild animal, and if suppose it want to can say remain stable in that can say dry ecosystem, it should have food and water at least to grow and survive. So we should can say make such zones in a wild can say area where food and water should be supplied or can say made available for them. So they'll not come in can say areas where human settlement is there. So definitely these are what can say some of the measures one should take to avoid conflict between wild animals and human. Cropping patterns should be changed near the forest area. If you are growing some of the crops which are not eaten by can say grazing animals, so definitely crop destroy नहीं होगा, खराब नहीं होगा. But when you're growing crops which are more likely by can say wild animals or can say grazing animals or herbivores, definitely these animals maybe can say the deer, maybe deer, or maybe can say animals can rabbits or can say different we can say species of uh, deer. They'll come and can say destroy your can say crop. So avoid such crops nearby can say forest area. Even development and construction work in and around forest region must be stopped. So if you can say this is the forest area and you can see one tower, it is constructed. And if you want to construct that, definitely will have a road there and definitely people will destroy they can say forest in the vicinity. So what should avoid? So stringent laws and legislation can say rules should be made in India to avoid such type of construction. Adequate crop and cattle compensation schemes must be started. If suppose wild animal can say kill any can say uh, cattle or can say goat or can say wild or can say livestock of the farmer, so definitely farmer should get compensation from government. So such schemes should be say provided to the farmers to avoid the loss of biodiversity. This is what different things that we have seen. And I asked question in the can say starting, who is father of biodiversity. So Wilson is father of biodiversity, and he has can say first time given all the things to the society that we should protect all living organisms because they're having different services for human being. So with this, uh, I'll end this session because first session it was very huge, so I decided to can say keep it short. Now what we have seen, just I'll recap the things. We have seen the definition of biodiversity. We have seen three different levels of biodiversity. There is genetic diversity, species diversity, and community or ecosystem diversity. At the same time, we have seen alpha diversity, beta diversity, and gamma diversity. Then, what is can say species richness and species abundance. At the same time, we have seen the different services provided by biodiversity, the social services, recreational, or can say educational, all services provided by biodiversity, and then different factors affecting this. So natural factors and man-made factors affecting biodiversity or losing the biodiversity, and what measures one should take to can say conserve biodiversity. So this is what the topic, which is having some base in signal transduction and can say plant microbe interaction. So that we have studied in can say two lectures before this session. So every organism is essential. So we require bacteria and can say all concentration of can say microbes which are growing in the vicinity of the plant. That's the rhizosphere flora. Without that, plants are not able to produce signaling molecules. We at the same time we require even minerals in abundance. So deficiency of any mineral will cause deficiency in the plant. So if you have can say lack of minerals in the soil, the minerals which are essential for production of protein or enzyme will get deficiency in them also. So there is what one can say sentence written by author in the same book, Soil, Grass and Cancer. The sentence is very simple. Plants are biochemical photograph of soil. Plants are biochemical photograph of soil. And if you have wrongly assembled minerals in the soil or deficiency in the soil will produce wrongly assembled protein in the vegetable. And if you take such wrongly assembled protein from the vegetable, or can say weak or can say deficient vegetable from the soil, that wrongly assembled protein will trigger the sum of the genes in human being or in animal that will lead to cancer. And that's why the name of book is Soil, Grass and Cancer. You should have healthy soil, you should have healthy crop, that's what vegetable, so as to have healthy life. And to remain soil healthy, we should have all the microbes in the soil that should grow in the soil with freedom, without any pollution, without any pollutant, and can say produce whatever chemicals needed for the plant to can say make the minerals soluble and make them available to the roots of the plant. So plants will take all the mineral from the soil and make good quality protein, carbohydrate, and can say quality RNA so as to produce quality macromolecules essential by all herbivores and animals and including human. Definitely, if you have can say good soil health, you'll have good plant health, and definitely can say thereby you can have good health of human being. So keep everything intact, natural way, and can say live naturally. So that's what importance of biodiversity. Once you know what is importance of this, definitely we'll try to can say conserve all the microbes, plants and animals, including insects and butterflies, and even the birds. There was an instance, I think, Day before yesterday there was news, and even today there was news. One of the tree that was cut in the pond, and most of the birds which are living on the tree, they died because of their they lost their, can say, nest. So there were flamingos and different bat species. They're killed, and the number is not less than 100. So one should avoid such, can say, cutting up older trees, because they're having, can say, most of the birds, insect, and microbes. They might have lived, can say, longer, from longer time there on this plant. They might have built their nest on the plant. And if you, can say, take away their home from them, definitely they are to search another new home, or, can say, in the search they may die. So avoid losing such animals, birds, and diverse plants, which are very useful for us. With this, I want to, can say that conserve plant, conserve animals, and at the same time conserve our health. Thank you.